All right, folks, you know how we did that deep dive on Ban.land, that crazy Minecraft Anarchy server?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, get this. I got my hands on, like, a lost interview
No
with
way.
a veteran player from back in the day, someone who was actually there, like, during Ban.land's rise and fall.
Whoa, that's awesome.
It's like a time capsule, Just need to
Totally.
uncover the truth behind all those Ban.land
I
myths.
am so ready. Let's do it.
Let's go. So this interview, it like paints this whole different picture of Ban.land than
Really?
like what we usually think of with these Anarchy servers.
Okay.
It was wild, don't get me wrong, but there were these weird periods of like order and even leadership.
Leadership on an anarchy server. That's crazy.
It's like totally paradoxical, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so rewind back to the beginning. This interview starts with like the server's early days. And Spawn wasn't always like the total wasteland you see in those old videos.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's like normal at first resources structures like you'd expect.
Okay.
But then enters SupremeTech, this dude who becomes like a total legend in Ban.land lore.
Okay.
He decides to like flip the script completely.
What'd he do?
Get this, he wipes out millions of blocks, like literally transforms Spawn into this massive empty expanse.
Whoa, hold on. Millions of blocks. Like, how is that even possible?
The effort is mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
So what was this guy's deal? Why go through all that trouble?
Well, it seems SupremeTech, or Slave Harrow as he was known back then, had this vision,
Okay.
for a different kind of anarchy. Erasing Spawn was like this powerful statement. It was setting the stage for like a totally unique player experience.
Oh, I see. So it's less about chaos and more about like a blank canvas.
Exactly. He wanted to create a true wasteland, a blank canvas for players to shape however they wanted.
Okay, so we got this intriguing figure shaping the environment, right?
Yeah.
But the interview also reveals how he came to power in the first place. And it all comes down to this epic showdown with another player, AlphaCheater.
AlphaCheater. That name rings a bell.
Dude was like the server's ultimate villain, known for being totally ruthless and having this almost supernatural ability to like hunt down other players.
Wait, so in this world where everyone is trying to survive, this guy was like the top predator.
Exactly. The interview describes him as like a nightmare, always watching, always hunting. Imagine the constant fear of knowing he was out there.
That's intense. I mean, it's one thing to worry about griefers and stuff, but to have this one guy who's just like a legend at hunting people down, that's next level.
Chills, right? So you have this environment of constant paranoia, and then SupremeTech steps up to challenge this guy.
Whoa, so it was like a duel for the fate of the server.
It wasn't just some petty squabble over resources. This was a battle for the soul of Ban.land.
Wow. Okay, so it's like good versus evil almost.
A clash of ideologies, a fight for dominance. And when SupremeTech wins, he becomes this symbol of hope. A leader in a world that was supposed to have no leaders.
That's fascinating. I mean, to think that a figure like that can emerge from an anarchy server, it's like the opposite of what you'd expect.
Total plot twist, right? And the interview portrays this victory as a major turning point.
I bet.
But SupremeTech wasn't just a fighter, he was also this builder, someone who fostered a sense of community, which is pretty wild for an anarchy server.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very anarchy-like.
Right. But it's one of the most interesting things about Ban.land, despite all the chaos players still wanted to connect.
Makes sense. Humans are social creatures, right?
Totally. So SupremeTech taps into that. He leads these huge construction projects, even creates this thing called Spawn Base.
Spawn base.
This constantly rebuilt hub that becomes like a symbol of their community.
So even in this chaotic world where anything could get destroyed, they had this one place they kept rebuilding.
Exactly. It was like their attempt to create some kind of order in the middle of all that chaos.
Wow, it's almost poetic when you think about it. It's like they were fighting against the very nature of the servers.
Yeah, and it speaks to this fundamental human need, right? Even in a world without rules, we want a sense of belonging. A place to call home Spawn Base was that for the players of Ban.land.
I can see that. I mean, even in the craziest environments, people crave some kind of stability.
It's amazing how these like opposite forces, anarchy and community, could coexist on Ban.land.
It is pretty wild.
But then, every good story has a twist.
Oh, no.
The veteran player describes SupremeTech's departure as like the ultimate betrayal.
What? He left?
Yeah, it's like this wound that led to the server's decline.
Wow. I mean, you said he was like the symbol of hope, a leader, so to have him just vanish like that.
And the mystery deepens because the interview doesn't say why he left. It's like this legendary figure just poof, disappears into thin air.
Okay, so now we have a mystery on our hands.
Right. And it makes you think about how fragile these online worlds can be.
Yeah, I mean, you build these communities, you pour your time and energy into them, and then poof.
Gone. Just like that.
It's a reminder that even in the digital world, nothing is permanent.
It really makes you wonder what happened after SupremeTech vanished. How did the server handle losing its leader?
Well, things kind of started falling apart after SupremeTech's left.
Like, everyone just lauds their motivation.
Yeah, the interview talks about this domino effect, loss of leadership, then the community spirit starts to fade, people drift away, and the server just slowly goes downhill.
It's like the glue that held everything together just vanished.
Yeah, pretty much. But wait, there's more.
Oh no, what else happened?
Before Ban.land totally died, there was this whole period dominated by dupes.
Dupes. Hold up, for those who don't speak Minecraft, what's a dupe?
Oh, right. So a dupe, it's basically a glitch in the game that lets you copy items. Like, imagine having infinite diamonds or super rare materials.
Okay, so like cheating, basically.
Kinda. It throws the whole balance of the game off.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how did this whole dupe era affect Ban.land? Did it make things even crazier?
Oh, yeah, totally. It was like an arms race. Everyone was trying to exploit these dupes.
So whoever had the dupes had all the power.
Exactly. And those who didn't, well, they were kind of screwed. It created a ton of conflict, tons of suspicion, and ultimately it just destroyed the trust that had been built up in the community.
Man, that's heavy. It makes you think about anarchy itself, right?
How so?
Like, is true freedom even possible? Or does it always lead to this kind of chaos and collapse?
Whoa, that's deep. I mean, it's a question philosophers have been debating forever.
Yeah, but Ban.land's dupe era, it's like a real-world example.
Totally. It shows how even without rules, you still get power dynamics.
The dupes, they basically created a new hierarchy.
Yep, one based on who had access to those exploits.
Crazy. So even with all this craziness, the server still managed to survive for a few more years? What kept it going?
Honestly, it's a testament to the community and the admins. The players, even with all the drama, they still wanted to create, to build, to connect.
They still had that spark.
Yeah, and the admins, they didn't interfere directly, but they made adjustments.
Like what?
Like nerfing the duped items, trying to keep things somewhat balanced.
So it was like a constant struggle trying to keep the server from imploding.
Pretty much, like walking a tightrope.
Okay, but the interview doesn't just focus on the bad stuff. There's also this event called the Meeting of Spawn-Based Treaty Force. What was that all about?
Oh man, this one blew my mind. So picture this, players on an Anarchy server where the whole point is no rules. They come together to negotiate a peace treaty.
No way. You're kidding.
I'm serious. They actually established rules of engagement around Spawn, like trying to protect what they had built together.
Wow. So even in this Wild West environment, they wanted some kind of order.
And like even in the craziest situations, there's this yearning for peace, for cooperation.
It really challenges how we think about Anarchy servers, right?
Totally. It shows that human nature is more complex than these simple labels like anarchy or order.
We crave freedom, but we also need some structure.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. And Ban.land, in its own way, it reflected that duality.
Okay, so this treaty, did it actually work? Did it bring peace to Ban.land?
It's hard to say for sure, but the interview suggests it had a positive impact, at least for a while. It created this sense of shared purpose, like maybe they could actually build something lasting in this crazy world.
But ultimately, Ban.land did come to an end. The interview mentions like a final blow, a technical meltdown that wiped out the server.
Yeah, it was a data corruption issue during a server update with the server's creator was trying to update it and something went wrong.
So after all the chaos and conflict, it was a glitch that ended it all.
Kind of ironic, right?
Yeah, it adds this whole other layer to the conversation about online communities.
How so?
It highlights how fragile they are. One minute they're thriving full of life, and then the next they're just gone.
Koof, leaving behind nothing but memories.
And speaking of memories, the interview mentioned something strange about the Ban.land Discord server.
Oh yeah, that's right. It just vanished.
Like no trace, no explanation?
Nope, it's like someone just wiped it off the internet.
Speaky. So even though Ban.land is gone, its story still fascinates people. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's the nostalgia factor, of course. Lots of players have great memories of Ban.land.
The good old days.
Right, but I think it's more than that. There's this sense of wonder, this fascination with this world that existed outside the normal rules.
Like a glimpse into a parallel universe.
Exactly, a digital frontier where anything was possible. And then there's the big question. What if Ban.land could be revived?
Whoa, hold up now, that's a dangerous question. Would it even be the same?
That's the million-dollar question. Would those same dynamics emerge? Or would it be something completely different?
It's a tantalizing thought to step back into that world and see what's changed, what stayed the same.
Imagine the veterans returning, trying to reclaim their lost kingdom, clashing with newcomers eager to make their mark.
And what about the culture? The interview mentioned the map art, those massive pixelated images.
Oh yeah, those were legendary. Would we see Daddy Putin and Daddy Nick make a comeback?
Or would the map art reflect whatever's going on now? It'd be like a time capsule showing how online culture evolved.
That's a cool way to think about it. So we're basically standing on the edge of a new era, imagining all the possibilities.
A revived Ban.land, it wouldn't just be a recreation of the past. It would be a continuation of the story, shaped by new players, new ideas, new challenges.
But there's another question, maybe a more important one. Could a revived Ban.land ever truly capture the magic of the original? That's the big question, right? Could a revived Ban.land really capture that magic again?
I don't know, it's tough. Like, you can't just recreate the conditions and expect the same outcome, right?
Exactly. The community, it grew organically, shaped by all those struggles. The dupe era, even SupremeTech's leadership is like saying, hey, let's bring back the dinosaurs.
You might get a T-Rex, but it's not going to act the same.
Exactly, right? It's a different world now. And speaking of those early days, the interview actually has this awesome timeline of how Ban.land evolved. Like, you start with that total Wild West phrase.
Yeah.
And then these factions pop up like New Athens and MXTA. It's like watching a civilization rise up from the digital dust.
And within that timeline are these crazy contradictions. Like, you have all this conflict, but right in the middle of it, you get the meeting of Spawn Base Treaty Force.
Right.
Players actually trying to make rules in a world with no rules. It's like in nature how animals make territories or team up.
Totally. It's like this instinct to create order, even when everything's chaotic. Did the veteran players say anything about how that treaty happened?
Yeah, they said it came out of necessity. Like, Spawn was this war zone, and people were tired of rebuilding all the time.
Losing their stuff over and over.
The treaty was a way to protect what they built, like their time and resources.
It makes you rethink Anarchy, doesn't it?
For sure. It's not just about total freedom. It's also about figuring out how to live together even without rules.
It's like self-governance.
Which is way harder than it sounds.
Yeah, and the fact that they did it even for a little while, that's pretty amazing. It shows they really wanted to make it work.
But then the dupes came along and messed everything up.
Totally. It shows what happens when freedom goes too far.
When some players have unlimited power, it's not fair anymore.
It's like real-world inequality, but in Minecraft.
And that brings us back to leadership. Even in Anarchy, you need some balance, some way to make things fair.
When SupremeTech left and the dupes happened, it's like the server lost its direction.
Like a ship with no rudder.
Exactly. It drifted for a while before crashing.
It shows that even online, our choices have consequences.
True, but maybe that's what's so cool about looking back at Ban.land.
It's more than just missing an old server.
Yeah, it's about what it teaches us about ourselves. Our desire for freedom, our need to connect, and how hard it is to build something that lasts.
Especially in a world that's always changing.
Those lessons are still important today.
Totally. Whether it's online or in real life, we're always asking the same questions.
Like how to balance freedom and responsibility.
How to make systems that are fair and sustainable.
Tough questions. Ban.land gives us a lot to think about.
It shows that even online, our choices matter. And while the server's gone, its story lives on.
In our memories and in the lessons we learned.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Ban.land, let's appreciate its place in gaming history.
It was a world full of contradictions.
Where chaos and community came together.
Where legends were made.
And where the idea of anarchy was constantly tested.
It was a digital frontier.
A social experiment.
And a testament to the human spirit.
Even without rules, we find ways to connect, to create, and to leave our mark.
Thanks for joining us on this trip back in time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of Ban.land alive.